A black girl was reading a book in the library when a security guard started yelling at her. Then the principal's voice spoke from behind him. If knowledge really is power, then I must have scared the hell out of that man. All I did was sit quietly, turn the page of Their Eyes Were Watching God, and suddenly I was treated like a threat. It was a Thursday afternoon, and the library at East Ridge High was practically empty, just the way I liked it. Sunlight poured through the tall windows and made the specks of dust in the air look like glitter. I had my book, a spiral notebook, and a pack of highlighters. No phone, no earbuds, just literature and silence. That was until Mr. Havers stormed in. "You," he barked, pointing his fat finger like I'd stolen something. I blinked, unsure if he was talking to me. Maybe someone else had slipped past the front desk? But no, his eyes burned into mine like I had no right to be there. "What are you doing in here?" he snapped, stomping across the floor. "You're not supposed to be here without a teacher's pass." I opened my mouth to respond, but the words stumbled. "I have one. It's in my notebook." He snatched the notebook off the table before I could reach it. "Don't get smart with me, girl. You kids think you can wander wherever you want." I felt my face burn, not from guilt, from the shame of being talked to like a criminal, like I didn't belong, like I was less. All around us, the silence thickened. A boy at the computer terminal peeked over the monitor, wide-eyed. The librarian, Mrs. Carson, didn't even get up. She just shrank behind her desk like she'd seen this before, like she decided it was safer to disappear. "I'm allowed to be here," I said softly, my voice tight. "My teacher gave me a pass. You can check." "You don't talk back," he shouted, slamming the notebook on the table. "You people always think the rules don't apply to you." Those two words, "you people," they cracked something inside me. I wasn't just a student anymore. I was a symbol, a problem, a target. Then came the voice. Calm, commanding, cutting through the tension like a scalpel. "That's enough, Mr. Havers." He froze, turned slowly. Behind him stood Principal Lane. He was tall, with salt and pepper hair and a reputation for never raising his voice unless it mattered. I said, "That's enough," Lane repeated, stepping forward. "Please step away from the student." Havers backed up, his face flushing a deep crimson. "Sir, I was just enforcing." "You were harassing," Lane cut in. "You know exactly who this is. Her name is Amara Bennett. She's an honors student, president of the Black Student Union, and she has full permission to use the library during her study period. You saw the notice on the staff board." Havers looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. "I must have forgotten." "No," Lane said. "You remembered. You just chose to ignore it. Or ignore her." A heavy silence fell. I felt like I should shrink, but I didn't. Not this time. Lane turned to me. "Are you all right, Miss Bennett?" I nodded. "I am okay. Would you like to file a report?" I looked over at Havers. He was breathing hard, angry, but now the anger was tangled with embarrassment. Fear, maybe. I hesitated. "I don't know." "That's okay," Lane said. "Take your time." He turned back to the security guard. "Mr. Havers, you are relieved of your duties for the day. Please leave the premises. We will follow up in writing." Havers didn't say a word. He just walked out, fussed, shoulders hunched. Lane watched him go, then turned to the librarian. "Mrs. Carson, if you ever witness something like that again and do nothing, it will be considered negligence." "Understood." She nodded silently, pale. Then he looked back at me. "Do you want to go home for the day?" "No," I said quietly. "I want to finish my chapter." He smiled gently. "Then please carry on. And thank you for your grace." When he left, I didn't cry. I just turned the page. But something had shifted, not just in the room, in me. I had just learned the difference between silence and stillness. One is forced, the other is chosen. That day I chose. Act 1, the shadow in the stacks. Later that night, my mom asked how school went. I told her the truth, mostly. I didn't want to worry her with every detail. She already carried enough working 2 jobs, trying to pay for tutoring and cooking dinner between shifts. But I did mention Havers. How he yelled. How Principal Lane stepped in. Her jaw tightened. "I don't like that man," she said. "He gave her cousin Mala trouble too. Always acting like he's the law." "He's just security," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "Exactly." That weekend, I got a call from my best friend Camille. "You need to speak at Monday's BSU meeting," she said. Everybody's talking about what happened. I didn't do anything, I said. You stood there. You spoke up. That matters. So I wrote something. Nothing fancy, just the truth. On Monday, I stood in front of 20 students, all different shades of black and brown, and told them what happened. Word for word. Even the part about you people. By the end, a few kids had tears in their eyes. One boy said his sister dropped out last year after being stopped by the same guard 5 times in one semester. Another girl admitted she never used the library for fear of being followed around. That stunned me. We were the ones trying to succeed, to stay in school, to do the right thing. But somehow, we were always the ones watched the hardest. The next day, Camille created a petition calling for Havers to be removed permanently. Within 48 hours, over 600 students and alumni signed it. Then the emails started. Some were from parents, saying thank you. Others were from teachers anonymously expressing support, but fear of retaliation. One message caught me off guard. It was from Principal Lane. He wrote, Amara, I'm proud of how you handled yourself. I'm requesting a district review into all security conduct at East Ridge. If you're willing, I'd like your help in shaping a safer school culture. I stared at the screen, stunned. He wasn't just listening. He was inviting me in. Camille and I met with him that Thursday. He gave us an hour. We gave him a list from training to better communication channels, to having more diverse representation in staff and safety roles. He took notes. Then he said something that stayed with me. You shouldn't have to become an activist just to feel safe at school. But since you already are, let's make sure it matters. I walked out of his office taller. Not because things were fixed, but because we weren't invisible anymore. They called it just a misunderstanding. But when you live in this skin, misunderstandings can become memorials. By the end of that week, the story had reached local news. Not because I wanted it to, but because a freshman trying to support us had recorded part of the library incident on her phone. It made its way onto Instagram, then TikTok. 1 million views overnight. In the video, I looked small. Not because I was, but because that's what fear does. It shrinks you in the frame. People started stopping me in the halls. Some offered support. Some just stared, like I was something to study, something to debate. I didn't ask for all this. I told Camille one afternoon, pacing in her room. She was sitting cross-legged on the bed, her laptop open, campaign spreadsheets already brewing. You didn't have to, she said. The moment Havers opened his mouth, he wrote the headline. All you did was tell the truth. But now they think I'm trying to get him fired. She raised an eyebrow. You're not. I sat down hard. I don't know. I just wanted to read my book. Camille closed her laptop. Her voice softened. Yeah, and black girls should be able to do that. Without fear. Without a fight. But sometimes the book is the first step. And now you've turned a page. 2 days later, a note was slipped into my locker. No name. No anduriting irrakunisa. It said, watch yourself. You're not special. You're just loud. I froze, my heart thudding. Was it a threat? A warning? Just a coward with a pen? I showed it to Principal Lane. He took it seriously. Called in the school's safety officer. Reviewed cameras. But there were no leads. That night, I didn't sleep well. It wasn't a note. It was the silence. The same silence that let things like this happen. The kind that creeps into staff lounges. Gathers behind locker doors. Hides in side eyes and hallway whispers. I had felt it my whole life. Now it had a voice. At the next school board meeting, Lane invited me to speak. So I wrote a statement. Practiced it a dozen times. But standing at that podium, looking out at the room full of adults in suits and ties, my hands still shook. I didn't come here to make trouble, I began. I came here because I was yelled at while reading a book. Because I was made to feel small for following the rules. Because a man saw my skin before he saw my pass. I paused. No one interrupted. Good. I don't want special treatment. I want equal treatment. I want every student to feel like they belong in a space meant for learning. For dreaming. Not just surviving. Camille sat in the front row, holding her breath. Lane stood in the back, arms folded, his eyes steady. When I finished, I walked off the stage to quiet applause. Then came the backlash. The next morning, someone spray-painted the words liar and race baiter on the front steps of the school. News vans parked outside. My mom called out of work to walk me into the building. She didn't say much, just held my hand tighter than she had since I was a kid. Lane met us at the entrance. "We're handling it," he said, jaw tight. "Security footage caught 2 boys. We've identified them." "Will they be expelled?" my mom asked. "There will be consequences," he said. But I heard the hesitation in his voice. Later that day, during lunch, one of the boys, Jake Turner, a senior on the football team, found me by my locker. He didn't yell, didn't apologize, just said, "You got no idea what you're starting." I stared at him. "No," I said, "but I know what I'm stopping." He smirked, like I'd made a mistake, like I was out of my league. But I didn't flinch. Not anymore. Act 2. The unraveling. In the following weeks, things got harder before they got better. My grades slipped, not because I didn't care, because I couldn't focus. Between meetings, interviews, and fear of retaliation, school became a minefield. Camille tried to help. She took notes for me, made flashcards, even dropped off snacks with sticky notes that said things like, "You're the storm and the shelter." But I could see the toll it was taking on her too. Some of her teachers started treating her differently. Cold shoulders, marked down papers without feedback, the quiet punishments of young activism. Then, one night, my mom got a call from a block number. A deep voice said, "Your daughter's making enemies. Best teach her to shut up." I never seen my mom cry from fear before. That night, she sat on my bed and said, "Amara, maybe it's time to step back, just until things settle." I wanted to say yes. I want to go back to being just a student, a reader, a daughter. But I remember the face of the girl who sent me that video. I remember the boy in BSU whose sister dropped out. I remembered what it felt like when Lane stood up for me. So I shook my head. "Things won't settle, Mama. They'll just wait for the next girl." She hugged me so tight, I could feel her heart pounding against mine. "Then you keep going," she whispered. "But you never go alone." That weekend, something incredible happened. A group of alumni Black graduates from the past 20 years held a town hall. They invited current students, staff, and board members. Over 100 people showed up. One woman, class of 1998, stood up and said, "When I was here, Havers used to follow me to the bathroom. Said I walked too slow." A man from 2007 added, "He once accused me of stealing a school calculator. I had proof I bought it at Walmart." Testimony after testimony. Years of stories that had been dismissed, forgotten, erased. Now they were being written into the record. I wasn't the first, but maybe I could help be the last. A week later, the school board called for a vote. A review committee recommended the immediate termination of Mr. Havers, along with mandatory anti-bias training for all campus security and staff. The vote passed, 6-1. The one vote against? A trustee who later stepped down under pressure. It wasn't just a win. It was a shift. But even more than that, it was a reminder that words can build walls, but they can also open doors. Act 3. The Aftermath and Awakening. The day Mr. Havers packed his things and walked out of the school building for the last time, I wasn't there to see it. I was in the library, in the same seat where it all began. It was quiet, peaceful even. A warmth hung in the air, like something had been released. Not just in the school, but inside me too. Ms. Green, the librarian, came by and whispered, "Glad to see you back here, sweetheart." She handed me a new book, Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I held it gently, reverently. This wasn't just about a book. It never had been. It was about being allowed to be, to sit, to learn, to breathe, without suspicion, without surveillance, without being seen as a problem to be solved. Outside, the noise hadn't stopped. The media kept calling. The district started issuing public statements. Alumni groups formed equity task forces. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I had to respond to any of it. Because this time, people were responding for me. Camille and I stood on the rooftop of the school during lunch one afternoon, a place students weren't really supposed to go, but she had found the door unlocked after a meeting. "Feels different now," she said, looking out over the courtyard. "Yeah," I said. "Lighter. I keep thinking about the next girl. The one who walks into this school in 5 years and never has to worry about being told she doesn't belong." I smiled. "That's the dream, right?" She nodded. "But dreams don't work unless people do." I looked at her. "My friend, my co-conspirator, my shield." "You did a lot," I said. "So did you," she replied. You just didn't ask for it. And that's what makes it brave. We didn't speak for a minute. Just stood there, letting the sun warm our faces, letting the wind carry away the weight we'd been holding. Weeks passed. The end of the semester neared. Prom flyers went up. Finals loomed. I started sleeping better, smiling more, reading again. For pleasure, not defense. One afternoon, as I walked down the hall to class, a younger girl, probably a sophomore, approached me. "You're Amara, right?" I nodded. She hesitated, then said, "I saw what happened, and I just wanted to say thank you. My little sister's starting here next year. I'm glad she'll have someone to look up to." I didn't know what to say, so I smiled. "She won't need anyone to look up to," I told her. "Just someone to stand beside." Then one morning, out of nowhere, I got an email. It was from Principal Lane. Subject, recommendation request. He was nominating me for a National Youth Leadership Award. Apparently, the school board had submitted my name for a state honor, and it had gained attention from some larger organizations. I read the email 3 times before it sunk in. Me, the girl who'd been told to stop reading, who'd been called a liar, who'd been threatened, doubted, mocked, now being recognized, not for surviving, but for leading. The award ceremony was in D.C. They flew me out, covered the hotel, even gave me a stipend to buy a dress. My mom insisted on coming. She wore the same navy blazer she'd worn to every parent-teacher conference, but I could tell she had bought a new pair of earrings for the occasion. When they called my name, my legs trembled. I walked up to the stage, holding the speech I'd written in my hotel room the night before. "I'm not here today because I wanted attention," I began. "I'm here because I didn't want silence." I told the audience about that library, about Mr. Havers, about the video, about the moment I realized that speaking up wasn't a burden, it was a duty. "I'm not a hero," I said. "I'm just a girl who wanted to read a book. And that should never be a radical act." When I stepped down, my mom stood in the front row, clapping through tears. It was the proudest I had ever felt, not just because of the award, but because I kept going, because I made it mean something. The following school year, I got an email from Ms. Green. She told me a new policy had been put in place. All incoming students would receive library orientation, including a discussion on bias, inclusion, and student rights. They'd also hung a framed quote in the front of the library. It was mine, from a speech. "I'm just a girl who wanted to read a book, and that should never be a radical act." Amara Johnson. I stared at the image she attached for a long time. There it was. Proof. That voices can echo, that truth can root, that even the smallest sparks can light a fire. Now, when people ask me what really happened that day, I tell them this. I was just reading. That's it. And someone decided that was enough to make me a threat. But then others decided it was enough to make me seen. And I decided it was enough to make me strong. It's funny how one moment can change everything. It doesn't start with marches, or speeches, or headlines. Sometimes it starts with silence, and a voice rising to break it. Sometimes it starts with fear, and the choice to speak anyway. Sometimes it starts with a book, and a girl who refuses to close it.